Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the only Bandit character guide you'll ever need. Now, Bandit is a pretty good example of a hybrid survivor, but you could make the argument for a proc survivor if you're using a certain loadout. Talking about the loadout, let's go through the couple of options you have for your primary. The first is Burst. You fire a shotgun for 5 times 100% damage, and you can hold up to 4 bullets that reload automatically. Next up you have Blast, which is a single-file rifle for 330% damage. If I had to give you a suggestion here, I'm going to tell you to take Burst every time. The bullet spread is very minimal, and the damage is simply higher, because the problem with Blast is the bullet spread on the one bullet is really high, so you actually end up getting a lot more benefit with Burst. Now, the secondary is the Serrated Dagger. You just slice a dagger in front of you for 360 damage. The alternative is the Serrated Shiv for 240 damage, but it is a ranged attack. I missed, but you can throw a dagger instead of slicing it in front of you, so you can hit ranged enemies. Our shift will only have the one option, which is Smoke Bomb. It stuns enemies and turns you invisible, and it deals 200 damage upon activation and when you exit. So if I stand here, another exit will do 200 damage and stun again. Then for the special, we start with Lights Out, which is a revolver shot for 600% damage. Lights Out is interesting. Let's say I throw my shiv and I miss, and I kill an enemy with Lights Out, I have the shiv again. It resets all of your cooldowns upon kill. So if you don't kill an enemy with it, it does not reset your cooldowns. However, I prefer Desperado, which is the other special. When you kill an enemy with this, it gives you a little Desperado stack in the bottom left. Every time you kill an enemy with it, you will get another stack of Desperado, and you can stack that up. It resets every stage. That stack gives you 10% more Desperado damage every time. So every single Desperado kill stacks on top of itself, making Desperado kills easier to do more damage later, and that also starts out at 600 base damage. Now, there's a couple other pieces of the specials that I haven't mentioned yet, which is they have the effect of Slayer, meaning if I throw Desperado right now, it only does 154 damage. But if I deal some damage to this golem, and now Desperado, I deal 369 damage. So Desperado and Lights Out do more damage the more you damaged an enemy. So a full health enemy is going to take less damage than an enemy at half health, which makes it easier to get those kills. Another thing to point out is if I use either of my M2s, either dagger, it just does some damage. Doesn't really do much to a golem, but if I am behind an enemy and then I use it, it applies Hemorrhage. Now, hemorrhaging is similar to a bleed effect that does 2000% damage over 15 seconds. And it is very important that it is included in your runs. It also is stackable to do more damage and can kill enemies really fast. And the reason it only works from behind is Bandit's last and coolest piece of the build. So if I shoot a stone golem in the front, I deal 5 times 24 damage, nothing special. But if I am behind a stone golem, I'm guaranteed a crit for double damage every time. Any enemy that you are behind, you have guaranteed crits on, which makes Desperado easier, it makes Shiv better, and it makes every other ability you use better. So now that we've gone through all the abilities, I'm just going to play a run and give you other tips and tricks along the way. I wanted to get the abilities out of the way just so I could demonstrate them without worrying about spending 8 minutes on a stage 1. But this is my preferred loadout. It is Burst with the 5 shotgun shells, the ranged dagger, you're stuck with Smoke Bomb either way, and then Desperado for my special. That is my preferred loadout. It is really, really nice, and this is the Burst build for Bandit. Bandit does lean more proc. Those 5 bullets you can shoot really fast. It is as fast as you can pull the trigger or click your mouse button. You do have to wait for the reload time, and attack speed does up that reload time, makes it shorter, but the other builds are viable. I like Desperado because it turns Bandit into a potential Burst survivor. That 600% damage can become 1,000 damage pretty easily if you're stacking Desperado smartly. Lights Out can be more mobile, but you're never going to get huge bits of damage, so this is always my preferred. The best way to do it is to do some damage to enemies and use Desperado to finish them off to start to gain those stacks. You want to do this early and often, and keep Wisps alive because they are a really easy source of Desperado. One thing to keep in mind, if you do Desperado and then sprint, it will immediately cancel the Desperado, but it will use your cooldown. So if you're trying to sprint everywhere, Desperado will not work. You do have to stay still for the Desperado animation to finish, then you can run around again. So because I'm running Desperado today, I am going to grab a crowbar to get a little bit of that extra Desperado worth. If I can one-shot enemies from the top with that crowbar, it makes Desperado stacking just that much easier. You can see now I have enough Desperado to one-shot a Blazing Wisp right off rip with that crowbar. You should also be using Smoke Bomb all the time. By the time you get out of Smoke Bomb, it is a 3-second cooldown to use it again. So you should be pretty much spamming this. It does increase your movement speed relatively significantly, so it just makes moving around the map way easier. Another thing to note, when you're in Smoke Bomb, attacking will take you out of it. It will still use the stun that hits enemies when you leave, but it will end your Smoke Bomb. So if you're truly trying to escape an area, just let the Smoke Bomb run out on its own so you have maximum invisibility and speed. Also, invisibility doesn't quite work like you might expect. You are not completely invisible. Enemies just get a delayed update on where your character is every 2 seconds, I think. So you're not completely invisible. Enemies will still shoot in your direction, but you do have an advantage if they are going to be delayed by about 2 seconds. So now with 10 stacks of Desperado, with a crit we one-shot a Golem. You can see how the Desperado really does outscale Lights Out in the long run if you're using it correctly. And you should attempt to use it whenever you can on cooldown, especially if you're at the beginning of a stage. There's no reason to not spam Desperado everywhere. I'm already at 14 stacks, and I haven't really been paying attention, and we're only 4.5 minutes into the run. That's the other thing about Bandit. You should be using the abilities whenever you can. They are a really quick cooldown. You often won't need to use them all. I kind of have no reason to be using the Shiv, because right now, enemies are weak, and I don't have to worry about it. But Bandit, you can constantly use some ability. Doesn't really matter where you are, you can always make use of something because the cooldowns are so low. Now I could see Bandit being about a B, maybe a low A tier of a survivor. The Desperado really makes for kind of insane early game bosses, and I'll show you that when we get to Teleporter, but he's not one of the absolute strongest in the game. The build potential is really nice, and the guaranteed crit is really huge, but there is some better power elsewhere, and wow, oh, it's Aegis, never mind. But you can see the distance on burst doesn't really matter. Having less range or more bullet spread than the rifle doesn't really matter because that spread is still pretty small. I mean, look, I can hit these guys from here. I can even hit more than one at once. Another helpful bit to take into consideration is fall damage. Bandit has 2 fall damage cancels. That would be the shift, of course, which when you enter and exit, and then also the M2 stops your momentum. So either M2 and of course Smoke Bomb will give you a fall damage cancel, so you do not have to take much. So now here against Halcyonite, I'm going to show you the power of the Desperado. We have 45 stacks. I didn't get to show it very well in Teleporter, so I'm going to show it here instead. The way to fight most bosses, now I don't know which way this guy's facing most of the time, is to go back, Hemorrhage, Desperado, and look at the damage we do. If you can get a high stacked Desperado behind an enemy, it is almost an instant kill, and there you have it. So now here on stage 2, I'm going to keep building up that Desperado and show you again on Teleporter, but we're also going to go through some of the items that are really helpful on Bandit during this stage. So items that are good on Bandit. I have a little bit of a list here, and I'll go through them. We'll start off with the bad items, which I was only really able to find one. I mean, there are bad items in the game, which you don't generally want to pick up most of the time, like a Bison Steak or a Leeching Seed. But one item that is generally good, that's not that great on Bandit, are Lensmaker's glasses, crit glasses. You see, there's no real reason to pick up crit glasses when you have guaranteed crit just by standing behind an enemy. You might as well make use of other items like a focus crystal to get better damage out. Now in terms of the good items, most of it is proc. Now Bandit has a 1.0 on every single ability except for the shotgun, which has a proc coefficient of 0.5 on every bullet. But times 5 bullets, it's essentially a 2.5 proc coefficient. So generally the items you're looking for are Bleed, to stack really high, Syringe, to make your attack speed a little bit faster so you can stack it faster, but you can look for Crowbar if you're using Desperado to get those surefire Desperado boosts. And then items that work off crit, Laser Scope, Shatter Spleen, Predatory Instincts, even Harvester Scythe early game is pretty solid. And then in terms of reds, obviously most reds are really good, but Afterburner is extremely helpful on Bandit. You can essentially be invisible all of the time. Same with Alien Head, allows that cooldown to be very, very small. Again, it's 3 seconds when you're done. Take that, cut it by a little bit with Alien Head, you can be invisible most of your run. Clover is of course great for procs, but the item that really shines on Bandit is Shattering Justice. Shattering Justice applies a debuff when you hit an enemy 5 times, and Bandit has 5 bullets. So you shoot 1 time on an enemy, Shattering Justice is applied. Other than that, general good items are always going to be good, and generally bad items will always be bad. So those are the ones you should keep an extra eye out for Bandit. Now let me loot the rest of the stage, and we'll do a Mountain Shrine teleporter, and I'll kind of show you how I go about it. Because Bandit's an interesting one to play because positioning comes more into effect. In terms of health, Bandit kind of sits right around the middle, so you don't have to worry about being super squishy, but you also can't tank every shot. Alright, we got some decent items. We are going to do teleporter. I have 34 stacks of Desperado, and here is another fun tech for you. A Wandering Vagrant doesn't have a front and a back. How could you possibly know? Well, funny enough, you can. There is a small indicator. See that little red triangle? That is the Vagrant's face. So if I go behind that Vagrant and hit him with a Desperado, I get all crits on the Vagrant. So we did Mountain Shrine, we got 4 of them. Again, if I'm behind when I saw that little red triangle, I know that's the back, and another Vagrant is down. Let's again find that little triangle. We will go right behind, bang bang with my hemorrhage, and almost an instant kill. Bandit can shred bosses really, really quick. So we got our red triangle, we'll go to the other side, we'll Desperado, we'll hit a hemorrhage, and we can just remove the Vagrant. Very simple, very easy, and we're given a gloop. If you're really trying to stack Desperado the best you can, you should pretty easily be able to get about 30 to 40. You could probably get to 50 to 60 if you're really trying. Sometimes I don't pay as much of attention because I'm trying to tell you guys other stuff. But that means you can get Desperado to 1000% plus damage pretty easily every stage. And with a cooldown of 4 seconds, that is a lot of damage output. Now when I talk about bad items for Bandit, an item that pops into my head is Ajaro's band. My favorite band, the Fire Band, one of the greatest items in the game, is technically a bad item for Bandit. For the sole reason that if a Fire Band kills an enemy, it does not count as a Desperado kill. The actual damage from Desperado itself needs to do the kill, which makes things like Gasoline a little bit tough because that might steal Desperado kills. It means Fire Bands, if you don't quite kill an enemy and Fire Band does it, that will stop it from being successful. But it doesn't mean you don't take it because with Desperado stacked up, a Fire Band is super powerful. I do want to clarify, this also does count for Ice Band too, if the damage from the Ice Band is what gets the kill, but regardless, Gasoline, Fire Band, and Ice Band should all be picked up. It is not a reason not to pick it up on Bandit, it's just something to keep in mind when stacking Desperado. So the key for stacking Desperado is leaving harmless enemies like beetles around. I accidentally Faraday spurred them, but just kind of leaving them, wisps, beetles, even Lemurians, things you can kill easily but not take damage from, leaving them around and slowly taking them out one by one when it's off cooldown. Now your shift is a pretty good get out of jail free card. If you have a lot of enemies nearby, you can use it to escape because it does stun all the enemies. The best way to use it, I think, is for AoE. If you have a Gasoline, popping over and doing this and then shooting does a pretty good damage and stops everything near you, so you can do a lot of damage in a close area without risking your own health. We can now grab ourselves a little bit of bleed to show you what that stacking looks like. I'll try to find a bigger enemy to do it on, but bleed you can really get cooking after a little while if you have the right speed. Your shift ability can also be excellent for jumping up things. I cannot jump up this, but I shift, click, now I'm up. So easy upwards traversal if you know how to use your shift. Jump, shift, shoot, and you get some pretty good height. Once again, I'm going to do a Mountain Shrine so I can show you some good old Bandit gameplay. We have 25 stacks of Desperado. I haven't been as good about it this stage, but 25 is still respectable, and oh my god. So I'll show you the positioning. We'll see if the bosses actually spawn in this room or not. I don't know if they will. Yeah, everything is going to spawn up top. So let me go up here. And Solus Amalgamator, their face is obviously the front area there. So we're going to hemorrhage as much as we can. We have a really good bleed. We hit that Desperado, and we're already well below half health. I know I can finish this off just with my primary alone, and there it is, 1 down immediately. I do see some Beetle Queens, so I know I don't have a lot of AoE yet, so I do want to take advantage of these guys while they're here and not let too many Beetle Guards spawn. Again, look at the damage. We're on stage 3. We're 31 minutes in. We can kill a Beetle Queen just like that. 1, 2, 3, 4 Hemorrhage. We Desperado, and bang. Another one down. It's just one more Amalgamator. I'm going to sneak behind. 1, 2, 3, 4. I got a lot of backup mags. You probably won't have that. I kind of got really lucky, but it's solid. We keep hemorrhaging whenever we can, and Desperado will finish the job, and Teleporter's immediately done. In terms of a soulless distributor, if you are playing with the DLCs, I have no idea how to know what their front and back is, so good luck. I don't know what to tell you on that one. I haven't figured it out yet. The biggest thing is stay moving. Like any character in the game, always be sprinting. I always say, always stay sprinting, run around, jump around. If you have a feather, use it. Keep doing damage to everyone. Desperado when you see somebody low, but stay behind people if you can, but you don't have to shoot from behind. One issue that I had at the beginning, I was always trying to get behind every enemy. It's double damage, but it's not no damage if you're in the front. Now we're in Abyssal Depths. I'm going to Mountain Shrine again, but there's not a whole lot to show here. I can show you how much less Desperado does when you don't have it stacked up. We just were able to do half to a Stone Titan. Again, shift out of the laser, and we've gotten it. But you have to stack that Desperado. It's very important. Later stages, it does get harder to do just because enemies are stronger. It's harder to finish off that last blow because enemies have a lot of health. But making sure you stay with it and finding the right enemy to do it on is important. Like even that, I didn't get that Lemurian. So I have to be careful. Try to stack my Desperado the best I can, but eventually your build most likely will take over the need for Desperado. Now for the rest of the stage and run, well, okay, that's cool. I probably won't show you a lot. That's kind of most of the tips I have. I'm going to show you the Mithrix Fight, and then I'm going to show you how to unlock Bandit's alternate abilities. So the next time you'll see me, unless something interesting happens, is on the moon. And just as promised, here we are, right at 60 seconds. I was doing pillars, and I tried to get Desperado up as much as I could. I was relatively unsuccessful at only 9 stacks, but we're not going to need Desperado a whole lot during this because we do have a very good build in front of us. For the Mithrix Fight, my whole thing is doing damage until there is a good opportunity to get behind, which can be tricky because Mithrix does dash around really fast and unpredictably. But if you can find yourself behind for long enough to get a Desperado in, that's perfect. Hemorrhage is debatably even more important, so I can go behind hemorrhage. Mithrix can, of course, not get stunned, so it's going to be tough to use our Smoke Bomb to stop him from moving, but that is not the end of the world. Smoke Bomb is our safest play to avoid pretty much all damage. I'm trying to do as much hemorrhage as I can because it's really nice, but look at that. 12 stacks of hemorrhage. Hemorrhage does not go away, I don't think, for a long time. I'll put it on the screen exactly how it works, but I'm surprised we still have this many stacks. Okay, it does go away, it's just after a certain amount of time. I don't know what that time is. If I can find it, yeah, it'll be on the screen. I'll let you know how long hemorrhage stays for, but it does stack really, really well, and the damage can get really, really high. Phase 2 is another really good spot to get Desperado stacks, too, because the enemies are relatively predictable. I have Network Suffering, which is a DLC item that is really, really strong and actually making it a lot harder to stack Desperado, but I'm not complaining. Look at that. The damage is already a third of the way there. How much hemorrhage do we have? Only 4, but now it's 6. Keep stacking that up. We have Pizza. Again, you want to stay close to Mithrix during Pizza if you can make your way around behind, because now you can just sit here and get full crits. It can be difficult to move behind Mithrix during Pizza if you're not used to it, so don't get overzealous. Forward damage is perfectly acceptable, but if you can manage to get behind, he can't move, so you get a lot of free damage that way. One little note that can be hard to take advantage of, but when Mithrix jumps, he will always land the exact same way that he jumped in the air. So if you're trying to predict where he will land and what direction, that is how you do it. Whatever direction he jumped from is the direction that he will land, so it is somewhat predictable. That will do it for Phase 3. Alright, let's get behind him. Bandit, the easiest way to do it It's a little bit risky, but you can get right behind him, stay very close, maybe this distance, and you're just gonna unload behind him. Pause. We do have our Seed of Life if anything goes wrong, but I have my Serrated Dagger, which I can throw, and then we just do this. It's a lot of damage. That crit makes a huge difference, and so we can just finish the job right here. He almost never gets a chance to attack because our damage is so high. So now in terms of unlocks, unlocking Blast, which is the alternate primary, I need to reset my cooldowns 15 times in a row with Lights Out. I can use other abilities, I can use my syringe, I can shoot, but my Lights Out cannot miss. That's 4 in a row. This one is really difficult, you just can't miss. And you also can't afford to just do a little bit of damage, so make sure whatever you're shooting is low enough where that Lights Out will kill. The minute I shoot one and miss, I'm back to 0. The easiest way to do this is to go on command and just grab a bunch of crowbars and try to not miss, but it can be difficult because enemies can be unpredictable. To unlock the ranged M2, you have to kill a monster with 20 stacks of hemorrhage. Now this challenge can be especially difficult. The easiest way to do this is to go on command and get a bunch of backup mags or find a backup mag printer, but you need to apply 20 stacks of hemorrhage. The reason this is difficult is enemies usually die before you get there. That was 16 stacks. You'll have to get to at least stage 3 or 4 probably to find an enemy worth doing this to. The easiest might be a big command run on something like Voidling, because Mithrix you're gonna have trouble getting behind for that long. Now the toughest part of Bandit unlocks is unlocking Desperado itself. You're gonna have to start with Lights Out, and the whole goal is to kill Mithrix phase 3 with Lights Out, which is much easier said than done. I was able to do it with 30 armor-piercing rounds, 20 watches, 10 goat hoofs, and 5 minutes into the run, cheating myself here. But it is a very difficult thing to do. Bandit is quite a difficult thing to unlock all of the abilities for, so it's going to be a little bit of a slog, but that's kind of what makes it fun at the end of the day. And that is your Bandit character guide. I hope it was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. I will try to respond to all of them, or join my Discord and ask some questions there. With all that being said, thank you all for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.